Let's talk to our guy, Sheil Kapadia. He does a wonderful job, of course, covering the Eagles and the entire NFL, working for the Ringer. We love having Sheil on. Sheil, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good, pal.
Super.
All right, Sheil, let's start with this. Same question I asked John to start the show. 6-2 Eagles. Overarching thoughts. Where are you?
I feel good about them. I don't know if it's one of these absence makes the heart grow fonder things, but I feel like I feel better about them now than I did a couple weeks ago when you saw what happened around the NFL in Week 9. So I think, right, if the season ended today, they'd be the 1 seed, the division. I don't want to say wrapped up, but it would, take a lot for them to not win the division. So everything's out there in front of them, and I think the biggest thing is you look at some of these other teams and the injuries they've suffered, they're season enders, and they're not getting those guys back. And, you can knock on wood, but the injuries the Eagles have had, everybody's coming back, and so they're in position to have a pretty healthy team in the second half of the season. So I feel good about them. If I had to pick a team to come out of the NFC and get to the Super Bowl right now, I've said this all week on various platforms here on various podcasts, it would be the Eagles. I've got them right now in the NFC at number 1.
Yeah, we're the best team in the NFC. I mean, for my money too, Sheil. How much better did we get with the 3 big names, I guess, with Michael Carter the second and Jair Alexander, and now Jalen Phillips. Huge need was we couldn't quite get to the quarterback, and we couldn't quite cover long enough. And now you get a little bit better at doing both, and then you add Nolan Smith, and you add Brandon Graham, and you add, you add 3 new guys into the mix as pass rushers with Jalen Phillips as well. How much better did the defense get in your eyes, Sheil?
Yeah, I really like the Phillips addition quite a bit. That was a position of need. I love that he's played for Vic Fangio before, because that's always the concern when it's an in-season trade as well. Is this guy going to be a scheme fit? How are you going to use them? Well, there's no guesswork here. I mean, Fangio had the guy in Miami, played him. He played really well there before he got injured. So I like that move quite a bit. And the big thing with Phillips is that I didn't realize until kind of studying him a little bit more after this trade is not only is he a very good edge defender, but when you're on third down, you can move him inside, and he can be an interior pass rusher. I mean, he did that quite a bit with Miami, where he is slipping past guards, and he is strong enough to do that against those interior offensive linemen. So I like the versatility, the flexibility it gives you there.
And I've seen him be, sort of like Jason Taylor did down there for them in their nickel looks. He can be a joker where he'll stand up as, like a nickel inside backer off the ball, an A-gap to A-gap, mess around with their blocking scheme type guy too.
That's right. I even saw he spied the quarterback on some of the snaps. I thought this is an athletic defensive lineman. It's going to be fun to watch him. Now the secondary, it's the biggest concern on the team. Cornerback too. They didn't solve it. Jair Alexander is a complete dart throw. Maybe you get something from him, but you got to remember that was one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and he couldn't get on the field. So he's had just a lot of injury issues where it's a complete unknown to me, where it would be surprising if he came in and was the answer. Michael Carter.
Really?
I mean, Jair Alexander didn't play for the Ravens. He played in Week 1.
I know. I just figured it was something. I figured it was something, I figured it was an emotional thing, like feelings had been hurt more than ankles.
I tell Sheil, I tell John a lot of times it's the body that's hurt.
Yeah,
the body's
maybe.
not as hurt anymore.
That's what I'm saying. I assumed in this instance it was more feelings than bodies and ankles.
I think physically he hasn't looked, quite late. He was a top 5 corner in the NFL in his prime. Now, you never know. Maybe he gets healthy, and in December we're having a different conversation. I just don't think that's the most likely outcome for Jair Alexander. So I think they still have to figure out who's playing outside at cornerback when they are in nickel.
Wow. So it's not automatic in your mind.
No, I would be surprised. I would have him lower if I had to rank him. I would actually say somebody like Jacorian Bennett might get is more likely to settle in there as the outside corner than Jair Alexander. I think they're taking a bunch of dart throws. They're saying, hey, let's see how these guys all look, and we'll settle on someone. So it could be him, but I don't
in
think
that case, in that case, is there still the possibility that Michael Carter II would become the nickel and Cooper DeJean moves outside? Is he better on the outside than what Jair Alexander would be at this stage of Alexander's career?
I think he would be, but I also think that he might be the best slot corner in the NFL. You know, just the stuff he does for the Eagles. That's Cooper DeJean in the middle of the field. And I think Vic Fangio, if he had his preference, he would say, I want to keep Cooper DeJean where he is. He's tremendous against the run. He's so smart. He can make plays in the middle of the field. But there could be a scenario where he says, you know what, I don't have any other choice. We're moving him to the outside. This is why we traded for Michael Carter. He's going to play the slot, and DeJean's going to move to the outside. So I'm sure somewhere in the NovaCare complex, Vic Fangio has, all these different combinations written down, and he is not somebody who sticks with something for a long time. It's not working. We see it in the middle of games. If something doesn't work on the first possession, he moves on. So I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error here with the secondary over the next month or so.
Sheil Kapadia with us as it's the Birds at the Bye from Shakey's and Pete's today. Sheil, let's talk about Jalen Hurts, that is. So I think most Eagles fans would say coming into this season, his best regular season was 2022. I would certainly say that. Do you think this regular season he's been better than 2022?
I don't think so overall. I think he has a chance to be. You know, I think there was it was a little up and down there for the first, 4, 5, 6 weeks. I think the last 2 weeks were his best games of the season and really encouraging, not only with how he played, but how the offense played and the things he was doing, going under center, play action, throwing in the middle of the field, stuff we didn't necessarily see in 2022 or in any other season. So I think he's in position to have a real good second half of the season. But if you ask me just now, based on the games he's played, has he been better? I would say probably not.
So, Sheil, let's talk about Saquon, and I'm really interested which way you cut on this one. Obviously Saquon's likely to be better than he was in the first half. He was certainly in the last game. But I'm curious which you think he's more likely to be near. The Saquon of last year, which was one of the greatest running backs of all time, that got to 2,000 yards, or the Saquon of this year, who was pretty pedestrian in part because of the line. A lot of games was just getting 60 yards a game. Which Saquon is he going to be more in the second half? The pedestrian or the beyond exceptional?
I think he has a chance to have a monster second half. So I think more the version of last year. Now, you never know with the wear and tear with running backs and injuries. So that is the caveat. If, something happens there, then who knows? But if I can be confident that he's going to be relatively healthy, I think they figured some things out in the run game. I think just having Landon Dickerson healthy is a huge, huge deal for this run game, and I think we saw that in the last game that they played. And I've been pretty consistent with you guys all season when the run game wasn't working. I said, on film, Saquon Barkley looks like the same guy to me with his explosiveness, with his movement. So I do think a lot of it was the blocking. Their tight ends were getting crushed. Now they got the new package with Fred Johnson out there, the sixth offensive lineman. So I think their run game has a chance to get back to being the foundation of this offense and being one of the better run games in the NFL.